Bonjour.
Bonsoir.
Okay, so I'm here with Stephano, obviously. Like, when I last did my interview with you, it was like at Dreamhack Winter. So this was just after you'd had like the WCS big result still. You were still like a decent result at Valencia, so like the results were still pretty high. And when I'd looked across your whole career, it was every couple of months, you would only have like one or two bad results. You nearly always were placing like top 6, top 8. Even on bad days, it seemed like you could always get to like top 8 at least. But since that tournament then, you've only had one top 8 finish, actually. You've had a lot of finishes that were like a lot less than we expect from the name Stephano.
Yes.
Like, how would you characterize this last period of time? Like, what do you think of it in terms of your career?
Well, it obviously was the worst time of worst result of my whole career because I have had personal issues and I couldn't really focus as much as I wanted on the game. I can't really develop what happened, but I have had some troubles. And I had to deal with them and play the game still, so I had kind of shitty results, to be honest, and I'm getting better and better with the time. I had like a huge fall at this time, around November, October, and after that I kept like improving slowly, and nowadays I'm obviously not at the level I used to be last summer, but I'm getting closer to it. I don't think I will get it back, but I'm getting closer.
Do you think, as well as like the personal issues, do you think there were actual like game issues? Because when I've done interviews with you in the past, around that period of time, you said stuff like that. Basically, you didn't like to take risks. You were sort of telling people, "I'm going to try and play these long macro games, etc." And you were saying like, "I don't really change my style for the player. I just play my style and play his race, etc." Yeah. And so it kind of made it sound like you were being a bit stubborn. Maybe you just want to play this particular style, and then whatever they do, whatever happens. Is this got anything to do you think, why the results went down a bit since you're so studied, etc.?
It could be one of the reasons, not the main, to be honest, because what I was doing, I was kind of doing it perfectly, and it was like the safest way to play Zerg. So basically if I was doing my job correctly, there was no way for my opponent to really defeat me. And that's what I showed during my whole career, because I was still playing the same time my whole career. I don't think like people knowing my style made me lose the game. It's just that my actual level got worse and worse, and I couldn't really play my style perfectly as I used to do, so I started losing.
In general, in terms of that as like a concept, like wanting to play a certain style and almost like telling your opponent, like, this is how I play, and like you can do whatever you want. In StarCraft 2, since for certain races, all-ins are so powerful, especially if we think of like Protoss, for example, is it not a problem that you don't vary your play much, or do you vary it within like the certain couple of builds that you do? Do you have little tweaks that you add in?
Obviously, I guess, like in the early games, there will always be changes between the games. I can't always play the same thing, otherwise it would be stupid. Like any blade counter would kill me. I just, like in the early game, I would adapt to what the Protoss is doing, and the late game would always be the same thing if I get a safe early game. And yeah, I wouldn't change, I think. I just adapt in early and play the safest and best play style in late game.
Because I mean, if you just say something as broad as like, "Oh, I always play this certain style," people are going to think it's actually very limited. But actually, I know you didn't follow Brood War, but in Brood War there was an example. Okay, Flash, when he was the best player, he actually used to play only a few builds at a time. But the plan he had was he would make each build sort of work in almost any scenario. So he'd have the plan he'd have it so planned out, that whatever little thing happened in the game, he just like adapted it in the game. And so actually it was a way of like perfecting a build to a level beyond just having like 10 really good builds. You have like 3 amazing ones. Is this kind of like the approach that you were going for?
I wouldn't say I pushed it that much into like perfection, but I think there were like, I don't have many builds, to be honest, maybe 3 or 4 different not even, maybe 2 or 3 for each matchup. And yeah, I played them very, very well, but yeah, as I said, there was more difference in the early game. The late game would always be the same thing, and I don't think there's much to add on this question.
I mean, you were saying before you like to play reactively to what the opponent does, and whenever people list your strengths, they always say, okay, positioning and decision making. These are the 2 things they list. But those are kind of like vague things. Like, we know roughly what positioning means, but when you think of like when you're at your best, like what is it that you can do that some of the other Zergs or some of the other foreigners aren't quite as good at? Like, what do you think? Set up a scenario where it's like that's you at your best in terms of positioning. What do you see that others don't?
Well, as I said, it's like decision making and positioning, but you have to add to that the macro and micro during the fights, and like doing these 2 things sounds easy, but there's way more to do behind that. Keeping ejecting, spreading the creep and positioning overlords and stuff, like many things. And when you have everything done perfectly, these two things are the most important, because when you think about StarCraft, if you take one good fight, you can win a game. Even if the opponent has like a sick economy or anything, if you take like the best fights you can have, and you win it, you can win the game on that. So I was really focusing on these 2 points, like decision making, having the good army composition, and taking a good fight, like flanking and stuff, to be able to be the most cost efficient with my army.
In terms of like when you talk about, okay, players who have incredible micro and then the players who are just really, really good strategically, in general I've noticed it tends to be sort of like 2 extremes. Like the players who don't have very good micro, they focus everything into the strategy and maybe the macro element, and they know, okay, I'll lose the fights overall, but maybe I can outproduce the guy. Whereas some of the guys who have incredible micro, they sometimes over-focus because they're trying to win every little battle. It sounds like you're describing sort of like a mixture between the 2. And I've known in the past you've told me like, you think your map awareness is really good. Do you think this kind of contributes as to how you can balance the 2 out like that?
Well, I think at a professional level, the balance between being good at micro and being good at macro is kind of similar. You can't like be like very good at macro and bad at macro. If you are like that, you will lose every fight. Even if you have like a sick economy, you will never be able to win the fight. So I think everybody is very good at that. There's like small difference, or as you said, map awareness and positioning and stuff like that, which make people win. But basically, everybody has like the best macro right now at the professional level.
One of the things along those lines that I've noticed is that people who have really insane micro, sometimes it looks like they like over-rely on it in actual fights. Like they're willing to take fights that for someone else would obviously be a losing fight, but because they're so good, they might overcome the odds. In terms of your like positioning, I've noticed this sometimes happens in your macro games. Like you can always be just behind the enemy in supply, or you look like he's going to take a base, but then it's like the games you win, you hang on until the last second and then turn the tide round. Have you always just had this sense? Is it something like you developed within your game?
Let's say, at a personal level, I don't think I have a good macro for a professional player. My macro is kind of sloppy, and especially on the injects, I'm very, very bad compared to other zergs. But the thing is, I managed to win fights other zergs wouldn't win. So I can stay in a game which would be lost for another zerg. And the longer the game goes, the most macro focus it is, because the more hatches you have, the less injects you need, because you have like 3 larvas and stuff. So I try to keep focusing on the micro and not the macro for the late game. Early game, everybody's at the same level, because you don't have very much to do. There's no fights and stuff, so everybody has like perfect injects, and I do too. But at the late game, I would look like a noob, to be honest, on the inject side.
Actually, you told me this in the past, that actually you still, well, back at Dreamhack, you said you were still using the old school inject method. Is there any reason why you never just took some time off to like build up and get the new style?
I'm lazy.
Doesn't matter
That's
enough?
it. I don't think I have lost any, maybe like a few games, but everybody knows I'm not a hard worker, so like for a minor detail like that, I don't think I'm motivated enough to put time to work on that, sadly.
When you're saying, though, that you can sort of take certain fights that the other Zergs would lose in, do you think that it actually plays into your success in the sense that it's hard for other people to prepare for you because they're getting into scenarios that look favourable to them, like, oh, I might be winning here, and then it gets turned around on them if they're not too familiar with you?
It could be. I think they are well aware of my actual skill about taking fights and macroing, so against me they play very, very safe, and they are very precautious, I think, more than against other Zergs, because I see some games. Sometimes the Protoss on the turn just like attacks and he knows he can win, but against me, he will always like take precautions. We can see the games against Torsen. Like I had no economy, I had like a good army, but he never took the fight because he knows if he loses like this fight, he can lose the game on it. So yeah, it describes perfectly the situation.
If you had to name like a couple of players who do give you a lot of trouble when you play against them, like in any race or whatever, who comes to mind as like the ones that like these are like tricky for me, like they have my style well figured out, or it's a good matchup?
I don't know. Maybe everybody.
I don't. Someone who's more difficult.
No. Like I can't think of someone who always beats me because he knows my style. No. I'm sorry, but I don't have an answer for this question.
Okay, here's a thing that I was interesting, because when I was looking back, obviously when we did the other interview, this was during like the time when Zerg was in theory winning everything and all the rest of that stuff. And so when I was asking you how you were able to have your success just before that period of time, when in theory no foreigner Zerg was winning anything, you told me that you thought the secret was that you didn't have like stereotypes already set in your mind as to how the Protoss and the Terran had to play, and that you would just kind of look for a solution, and you wouldn't have like a preconceived that like I can't beat this. Now that we're in HOTS and everyone's complaining about Terran now, it's being very difficult in TVZ, etc. Like, can you have a similar approach now that's going to be successful?
I wouldn't say I have the same mind going into the game as I used to. Like, let's say I have so much experience on StarCraft 2 now that I do know when there's something imbalance, and I don't lie to myself, I don't deny it, and right now everything is balanced in my opinion except the Swarm Horse, which is too strong against Protoss, and the Hellbats being too strong right now for its cost and supply. So, like when I go into a game, I try not to think about that, especially the Hellbats. I don't really care about Stronghouse because it's favoriting me. But the Hellbats, I try not to think about it and try to still play the game, but it's very hard to, like, tell yourself you have to play against a race which has a unit which is slightly too strong against your race.
When we were talking about decision making as like a strength, the other person who I always hear people say the same about was back in the day, people used to say that about Nesty when he had his really early success. And people used to say it like this, okay, because his decision making in each second is so good, like another person can't just watch the video and know, oh, I'll just do exactly that, because it's kind of like when they're in the moment, they'd have to make another decision that'd be totally different. Okay, so when people see a big macro game that goes in one person's favor, they're going to think to themselves like, oh, that's how he wanted the game to go, or he was planning the whole time, like, okay, in a few minutes I'm going to do this, and then he's going to do that back. But it seems sometimes when I watch your games, more like you just try and set up favorable scenarios over and over. Like, okay, there's going to be a battle in like 30 seconds that I'm ready for, and I'm going to probably win that one, then I'll just set up another one over here, and you just win by virtue of the fact you do more favorable engagements. Is this a good characterization?
I guess so. I don't think I like prepare myself for the whole game more than like for the next action or the next two actions, but I don't think it's possible to like predict everything which will happen like at a certain moment of the game.
I mean, even
like
during the game, though, you're not necessarily thinking in 5 minutes, oh, this is my overall goal.
No, I can't do that. Like, I know if I win this fight, the next fight will be easier or something like that, but I don't see further than this. I try not to, because let's say the game goes really fast, and I try not to overthink, because at each action, you'll have like a different scenario going, so you will have like to spend a lot of thinking into what will happen next. But if you like see only like to the next two actions, it's not a lot of like thinking process to put into it, and it's less effort, so it's easier. Maybe it's working against me, I don't know, or for me, but like I'm okay with that. I don't see it as a inconvenience, to be honest.
When we think of the really successful period, so I always think of like the first half of 2012 because you had a lot of really good results in a row. A lot of the other foreigners, in fact, I can think of almost no foreigner who was as consistent in getting to the high placings, because it seemed like even on a bad day you would get the top 6 placing, but on a good day then you win the event or come second or something. Were there any tournaments since like the bad period basically where it felt for a while like, oh, I'm sort of getting into a groove here, and then it just ended abruptly, or was it really that the whole tournament thing was just not working out?
I think the last Dreamhack, as I said, I was staying 1 month in the Ilyes house in March, and I felt really good. Like I actually thought I had back my level of last summer. My APM was crazy. I was around 500 all day long, and I was playing like 8 to 7 hours a day. But after that, I had like a travel for 3 days I couldn't play. And then when I went to Dreamhack, I went back to like 350 APM or something, and I was playing kind of bad. I was doing bad decisions and stuff. So I was very disappointed into my play. I was struggling against foreigners, which usually I never do, and it felt strange. But like I think I can get to this level, but I'm way more fragile. Speaking about conditions right now, I used to not really care about how I'm playing, who I'm playing, and stuff. Right now, like every detail seems to bother me. Like jet lag is a huge issue for me right now.
One that I thought in my mind of a period where, even though it was during the bad results, you had like a good spurt, was this exhibition game, the GSL World Championship. Because obviously there wasn't really anything on the line. Like it was going to be, you'd have to have won 5 games, I think, in a row to win the actual match for the foreigners. But you won 4 against the GSLX champions, etc. I mean, was it the fact it was an exhibition match made it easier to play in that sense? Like, I mean, were these really high-level matches from your memory of them?
Uh, it might sound strange, but I play my best level when I don't care about a match. When I care too much, I try to force myself to play good, and it doesn't work at all. So when I don't care about a match, I'm like, I don't have anything to lose, so why not try stuff? And this way to think makes me being unpredictable. As you said, like people think about me as someone who has like one style or like a style which always will be close to like a macro player, a safe player. But when there's no money or nothing on the line, I can like change completely. I don't care about the match, and I can be unpredictable. Yes.
One interesting part during your career, even though it came during the downtown in terms of results, was going to Korea. Because obviously to the fans in the West, this is what they'd always wanted to see. You know, will Stephano ever go to GSL? Since after that period, you had these interviews where you said you didn't enjoy it there and you wanted to go home and maybe never return to Korea. It made it seem to people who were behind the scenes like, oh, maybe Stephano didn't actually want to go to Korea, and maybe this was like part of his job at EG was like, okay, we want you to go to Korea for a couple of months, try it out or something. Is there any truth to this? Like, was it actually your idea in any way?
EG didn't force me to go to Korea, never. Nobody forced me. Like, I do have to go to Korea, but I have not been forced. I wanted to go and have a try. Maybe I stayed too long. Because basically there was no tournaments for like a 2 month period, and I didn't really have a PC at home, so I was like, maybe I should stay in Korea, have the best practice I could get, and then go to the tournaments and own everything. But I didn't really think about like feeling homesick or something like that, and it was a bad decision for me, but we learn from mistakes, I guess.
I mean, when I'd asked you about this in the past, and you'd said, like, I don't think it'd necessarily be worth me going to Korea because I don't like to practice a lot, and plus in those tournaments where you can practice for someone, like, that's not my style. I prefer the one-off tournaments. It seemed like that, from what happened in GSL, that kind of is correct, because you had an okay performance in Code S, but then when you played this game versus Flying, I think in Code A, this was like a good example of someone who in theory should be like a lesser player, but it looked like he just had your style completely prepared for and everything. Did you get this sense as well?
Let's say I knew I wasn't doing the next GSL. I wanted to win the match, but I didn't really try hard to win it because I knew there was no future for that. There was no rewards of winning the match or losing it. So I wasn't really motivated to win. I just like played as if it was like a ladder game or something. I didn't really put much effort into it. Sadly, it may sound like I'm in a position which I don't deserve, but I don't want to like try hard on stuff which will give me nothing. Maybe for the fans it would be like a good thing to see Stephano winning against a Korean, but for me putting so much effort for a match which will give me nothing is rather futile, I'd say.
Because the main thing that the foreigners who go to Korea and enjoy it, they list is like, okay, so if you just want to practice all day long, you can just ladder all day and that's really good. Or the good thing about having a team, in theory, if you have Koreans on your team, is that they can do specialized customs against you, mimic styles and all these sorts of things. It sounded from your interviews like you didn't really care about any of that stuff and you'd rather not have to do that stuff with the rest of the team, from the things you said about your coach, etc. Is it really the case that just that whole lifestyle didn't fit you?
Let's say I'm open-minded, I tried it, I saw the results were not having good effects on me, so I just dropped it and stopped right after that. I can understand Koreans, like Koreans are raised in a way that they don't think about themselves first, they think about like the group and society first, and then they put themselves. So they will think about their teammates first. He needs to practice, I will play with him. Even if he doesn't like help me, I will still play with him. And I'm not in this mode, I'm more selfish and more like Lonely Knight competitor or something like that. And yeah, it's not a style which fits my mind.
In general, though, couldn't we kind of just say that that's like naturally the way the two cultures are? Because in the West, we're kind of more individualistic in theory and want to like do things for ourselves. And so I think a lot of fans like get on Western pro gamers who don't do as well because they think, oh, you don't practice as hard or all these. You think it's just like naturally the way the people are, though? It's not necessarily that they're more dedicated?
I guess it's crucial about education. I don't think like Koreans are like especially hard workers. It's just that they have been raised in a way that if you don't work hard, you get nothing in life. And for foreigners, usually it's a bit easier. The parents don't ask a lot from the children. They let them live the life they want. Like, I don't think in Korea you ever have like gap years, but in Europe we do have that. And yeah, this kind of stuff makes us look lazy on the scene. But it's just about like culture and education, sadly.
Did you manage to take any like interesting insights away from your time in Korea that you could use if you're practicing back in Europe? Like anything you do differently, or do you just go back to the old style?
I think I didn't change anything about my style. I think I showed it fits me correctly and I could be the best with it. I don't see, like I have tried because people were saying this is the best way to play StarCraft and to improve. I have tried it didn't fit me and then I dropped it, that's it.
In your past interviews, you always said stuff that was kind of provocative, like, okay, I only play for money, I don't even play to win the titles necessarily, etc. And so some people thought maybe you were kind of like building a persona here, like a badass guy who just doesn't even care about the tournament. But since you've had so many bad results recently, even if you've won some money, is it not the case that now, like in whatever time you have left, you desire like to win a big title again, or to like when you're winning, it's easy to say it doesn't matter, but has it changed your perception at all now?
It has. I didn't really like. Let's say if I wasn't retiring, I wouldn't care about losing. But like retiring in 4 months and knowing that this are my last month on StarCraft 2, I don't want to leave this. Leave the stage on a bad note and having like a maybe 5 months of bad result or something. So I still want like to prove that I'm a good player, win a big tournament, and then leave like proud of myself and with no regrets. But this will be hard. But this is my goal, and maybe it's not the good way to approach it. Because as I said, when I don't care about a match, usually I play good, and when I force myself to play good, I play bad, sadly. And right now I'm in a mood where I really, really want to have a good, like a great win before I leave, and it's making me kind of playing sloppy and bad and like too much pressure, putting too much pressure on my shoulder.
Okay, for my last question, I always like to end with like a hypothetical, imaginary question, okay? So for this one, I thought I'd do it like this, okay? Since we don't know how much time's left in your career, let's imagine we're in a scenario like that GSL World Championship again, okay? So you're going to play, potentially you have to win 5 games in a row versus these really good players, and you're just going to pick the 5 players you'd like to play, but they have to be either very good players you've never played, so you wanted a chance to play them, or very, very good players who you think, like, even though they're really good, you'd have a good chance to beat them. Who would you pick for 5 opponents to face? Give me a little reason for each.
Innovation, because I think the game we played in last GSL, I was really close to win it, but I have done very minor mistakes about like bad scouting, and I didn't see Zami leave his base or something. So I do need to get revenge. I want to play Jaydon because there was always the question who's the best Zerg in the team, even though like it's not relevant to win like a one match because it's like a specific matchup. It doesn't mean you are the best or not, but I do want to play him. I would play MC maybe, Marine King, because it's players I have met many times in my career, and lately I have always been beating MC, but he was saying it was like lucky shots and stuff. Marine King, just because he's Marine King, I don't know. And the last one I would say, no, 4 is enough I guess. I don't think that the last one. Oh, actually for the 5th one I would say Naniwa, because he has been a big prick lately, and I don't want to like throw some provocation or stuff like that, but if I had a chance to meet him in a tournament, I would gladly play him and beat him, I guess.
Do you have a final message or someone you want to thank or say hello to?
Obviously, I want to thank my whole family for the support they gave me during the last 2 years and the acceptance they put into my decisions. I want to thank my team for understanding my purpose in life and my way to see the world and the meaning of life. I want to thank Blizzard for the efforts they put into StarCraft. It's great to see like a company actually caring about its game. I didn't really see that a lot, so seeing them being involved into StarCraft 2 is great, and doing WCS and stuff, I'm really happy about that. And thank you for the interview, and that's it. Thanks to my fan, obviously, my sponsors. I'm a bit tired, so I can't really develop, but I hope you will get the message.
Merci beaucoup.
Pas de souci.